Welcome back to the Tech Space, and in this video we're doing the while loop in C++. And basically how the while loop works is I basically have a syntax set up here. We have while and a set of parameters, so just like the for loop sorta, but it's a loop. So remember, loops run until the statement becomes false. So we're gonna create two variables inside of our main function. And we're just going to say int x is equal to 0. Remember, just like we did in our for loop, we had some type of variable and we had it set to 0. And we said, what for, x is equal to 0, and x is less than 10, use that incrementer x++, and we're going to run that, from 0 to 10 times because x will equal plus 1 every time it runs. So while that might be a mouthful, that's basically what a for loop does. It is what a for loop does. And a while loop sort of works like that. So we have a while, and of course we have our braces after here. But inside our parameters, what we're going to say is something like we would in an if statement. So in if statements, you remember we use logical operators, arithmetic operators, whatever you want to call them, to basically compare two different variables to check and see if they're false. And then we said, and if this other set of variables is true, then you can run the code. But while says basically, okay, so we're going to say x is equal to, we're going to say, well, yeah, okay, so instead of declaring this up here, we're going to say declare it inside of while. So we're going to say while integer x is equal to 0. Oops, sorry. So basically, we'll leave x up here, I guess, whatever. So integer x is equal to 0. So we have while integer x is equal to 0, and integer z so we'll say, actually, we'll do it this way. Okay, so our while loop basically takes if statement conditions. So what we're going to do in the while statement is create the incrementer. So I want to say x is equal to x plus 1 already, or remember I can just say x plus equals 1, and then we just want to put z plus equals 1 or z plus equals 1, however you say it. And basically, while x is, we're going to say less than or equal to 100, and z is less than or equal to 100, which means we want this loop to run 100 times. So while those two statements are true, being that x is incremented by 1 and z is incremented by 1, both starting at 0, which means we should get 100 loops of this while loop. So this should run 100 times. So basically I want to say, let's do something really weird. Let's just say put out a bunch of 8s. Okay, I'm going to fill the screen with 8s 100 times. So while these two conditions are true, and we have an increment in here, we're going to print this out. So this should run from 0 to 100 times. So as you can see, we ran 100 times, but there is a simpler way of doing this. So the while statement, again, we can use two parameters, we can use one. So I can use, while z is less than or equal to, I don't even need x. So while z is less than or equal to 100, it's at 1, or it's incremented by 1, starts at 0, we just have z, it runs 100 times. So basically it's saying that you can set the number of times that the program or this loop will run this code inside of here. So I could have, anything inside of here will run this specific amount of times. But if we want to add more conditions, like say while z is less than or equal to 100, or like and x is equal to 4, and then we can just create an integer x and make it equal to 4, and it's always going to be equal to 4, and if we don't create an incrementer for it, then it's just going to keep printing out stuff. So since this became false, obviously it didn't work, but it didn't work as in a recurring loop where it kept going forever. But if I was to make that, while z is equal to 100, change its value to 100, take away its incrementer, then just see out 8, forever until, the end of time. It'll just keep spitting this out. You don't want to run this though, because sometimes your computer will crash, or not your computer, but code blocks will. Some computers actually could probably crash from it if it's not powerful enough, but that's something that you don't want to do. So you always want the while loop to end. You don't want to set it to something that's never going to end. So I suggest you run your program, a specific amount of times that you need it to be ran. Other than that, you shouldn't be running it forever, because there's not many times in programming where you're just going to keep doing the same task no matter what. There's always going to be some condition, some factors that come into play that explain that variable, and explain how many times that variable needs to be displayed, or how many times that variable needs to come up. So you don't really want to create something that's going to be an infinite loop unless it's necessary. So realize that to get these to stop, you need incrementers. If you don't know what an incrementer is, go back to the for loops video, watch that over again. I explained a lot about incrementing, but other than that, that's how you create a basic while loop. It's very simple. It's just as simple as the if statement, just as easy as the if statement, and basically the parameters are the same, because you're passing through conditions that can be true or false, and if true or false, based on an arithmetic operator, you'll get a certain output, or you won't get a certain output. So if you need any help, please leave me a question and concerns below. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next tutorial, and see you next time.